From Grant Williams himself admitting to poking the bear to former stars like Thon Maker offering him some pretty constructive feedback, here's how NBA pros have reacted to the Williams versus Butler beef. For starters, though, what's the whole drama even about? If you've been extremely busy and missed out on the recent NBA playoff happenings this week, whatever I've said so far is probably super confusing to you. To clear it out, there is no real beef here. Just some good old trash talk between two players desperate to win. Only one's more desperate than the other. You see, Boston Celtics center star Williams couldn't stop himself from taunting his rival team's star player Butler, especially not after he just scored a three-pointer in the fourth quarter, during Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2023. And that's nothing new. This is the NBA. People love to get under each other's skins here, right? Except you don't just trash talk Jimmy Butler and expect him to be scared. Oh no, you'd better be ready for some real fire on the court after doing something like that. Because you just fueled him even further, as if he needed any more fuel to begin with. This six-time All-Star player tried to show everyone who's boss by making a shot of his own, only to be fouled by Williams in the process. What we saw next was Jimmy getting in Williams' face, and the two touched foreheads in what appeared to be a supercharged exchange. Both players were obviously handed technical fouls, but Butler also went on to score 27 points with 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in a 111-105 victory for his team. Williams, on the other hand, that guy could only manage 9 points in his 26 minutes and admitted that the better man and team won. But that doesn't mean he's sorry for what he started. Grant's not sorry to Jimmy, of course, and I don't think he should be either. If anything, Jimmy should be thanking him. Who Williams should be sorry to, though, is his team, because his words might have led to their loss, except he isn't. Grant defended his actions post-game, saying that he'd never back down from any confrontation or altercation on the court, such as this one, at least never without hitting them with one of his explosive responses. He agreed with everyone else, saying that he probably did poke the bear with his words, but he wasn't gonna hold back because of fear or anything. For Grant, every game is a battle. And no Jimmy Butler is going to scare him away from competing the way he's taught to compete. Which is pretty interesting to note, since in another instance, Grant said that the so-called battle altercation was him simply responding to something Butler said. He did add, though, that at the end of the day, everything on the court is out of respect, and if you ask his rival, he couldn't agree more. Just like everyone else, Butler also felt that his verbal encounter with Grant only gave him more encouragement to win Game 2, which is exactly what happened. But unlike other beefs you see in the NBA, Jimmy didn't just tear Grant apart after winning. Instead, he too justified his actions, saying that's just how competition works. Grant hit a big shot, and he started talking to the person making big shots on the other team, and Butler was all for it. He confirmed that it's things like these that make him put in even more effort and pushes his will to win. But more than anything, it makes him smile. Aw, now that's a take I never saw coming. Trash talk motivates him for sure, but it also makes Jimmy feel good about himself. To him, the thought that people want to trash talk him out of everybody else means that they view him as a decent player, as worthy competition, and that's all he needs to know he's made it. When your opponents know how strong you are, well, what else could you possibly want? Just like Williams, Butler also said that he respected his opponent. He even complimented the guy further, saying that Grant knows when to shoot the ball and when to switch up. But all that said, he probably doesn't know who to talk to in moments like these. Though if you ask people like Cedric Maxwell, they'll tell you not to give a flying frick about who you say what to. Well, something along those lines. Before Game 3 between Celtics and Miami began, ex-Celtics legend Maxwell revealed his thoughts on the whole Butler versus Williams fiasco, and according to him, if you're afraid of Jimmy Butler, get a dog, basically defending players like Grant and urging others from the same team to learn from his example. Maxwell thinks that players need to be a little more assertive and unafraid in their approach to tackling challenging opponents. Not saying anything and remaining silent in fear of how the opposition will respond is very childish, isn't it? In this game, everyone needs to toughen up and exhibit a fearless mentality, the same mentality that Butler has, to stop him from dominating the game as he does. Cedric enjoyed the fact that there was this heated exchange on the court. It's things like these that keep the game interesting for everyone. He especially liked how there was animosity toward Butler. Now, don't get him wrong here. Like anyone else who's watched him play, Cedric knows that Jimmy is an outstanding player, probably one of the best in the league right now. But you can't over-respect an opponent so much that you let him do whatever he wants to, can you? Which, according to Cedric, is exactly what Butler has been doing in this series so far. By being afraid of him, everyone has given him a free hand in going wherever he wants to go, which is ultimately aiding him in exploiting his opposition. Williams has tried to break away from that and is treating Butler like any other player from the opposition. And to Cedric, it's commendable. To Miami Heat players, however, it's only laughable. The team's power forward player, Caleb Martin, for one, knew that knowing Jimmy, this altercation was going to be good for the team from the get-go. He described what was going through his head when the moment happened, saying that you could just see the anger in Butler's eyes. Jimmy was ready to go after that interaction. Caleb seemed to speak for all his teammates when he said, "We'll take Mad Jimmy anytime." And honestly, with the performance that Butler put on that night, of course they would. Center Bam Adebayo had similar thoughts. Knowing that Williams' decision to trash-talk Butler would only fuel his motivation, he said that things like these have always fueled Butler. In fact, to Bam, it feels like Jimmy is the person starting these altercations half the time, just so he can get some more drama and competition on the court. If that's true, that is one extremely clever tactic right there. No wonder Jim's so good at what he does. While Miami's players were reveling in the fruit of one technical foul, Boston didn't seem to be having one bit of it. You see, people like Max might defend Grant because they see the reasoning now that they're no longer active stakeholders in the game, but his current teammates, they'd probably feel really annoyed, especially if everyone on social media is telling them that this is why they lost a crucial game. Celtics shooting guard Jaylen Brown, among many others, was asked about the exchange, and he didn't want to give any input. He simply responded, "No question." And you know how it goes. If you have nothing good to say, it's best not to say anything at all. Of course, the internet has never taken kindly to this piece of advice, and fans had been busy memeing this beef as much as they could. They turned the whole ordeal into a meme fest, and it was honestly hilarious. It looked like everyone had something to say about this from both ends of the court, and Twitter was bursting with memes. Some fans were even drawing parallels between Jimmy and Michael Jordan after this incident, and while it may have been in good taste, don't you think that's a bit too much? Michael Jordan? Really? Celtics fans were obviously blaming Grant, saying that his inability to stay humble cost his team the game. And NBA pros like Draymond Green and Donovan Mitchell couldn't help but agree. These two stars couldn't help laughing at the whole incident, with Green using Twitter to express himself. Draymond wrote that people like Grant should know what they can say and to whom. So, any sort of belittling trash talk toward Butler in such a critical game was never gonna end well, and surprise, surprise, it didn't end well. Not for Grant, at least. Donovan agreed as he wrote the same "don't poke the bear" statement that everyone else was using. Now, these two are Butler's friends, and it's only expected of them to react this way. While they were more amused by the situation, other pros like Thon Maker had more constructive feedback to offer. Maker's general thoughts were more or less the same as Green's and Mitchell's, but the way he phrased them made all the difference. He knew that altercations like these would only pump Butler more, and to him, that's exactly what Miami wanted. The former Milwaukee Bucks player implored the Celtics and Grant in particular to stop letting these players get to their weak spots. And while that is a good piece of advice, don't you think it's easier said than done, Maker? Anyway, from Thon Maker offering some constructive feedback to Grant himself acknowledging the consequences of provoking Butler, these were NBA pros' reactions to the Butler versus Williams beef.